Hey, everybody, this is Nathan from Home Service Leaders Podcast. I'm the owner of More Leads Online. I'm back with Mike Arnold, owner of Creekside Landscaping. Mike, it's great to have you back on. I've been really looking forward to getting to chat with you because Austin was the guy who got to have the first conversation with you. And then I listened to that episode a few times and I was like, I need to hang out with this guy.
A few times?
Oh yeah. Well, I listened to,
A repeat?
yeah, that's right. Um, maybe three or four. It was a good episode. What do you?
Nice, cool.
But even though I know who you are, not everyone listening will have necessarily listened to that episode or know who you are. So just one more time for everybody. Who are you? What do you do? And how did you get here?
Good question. Well, I am Mike Arnold. I'm the president of Creekside Outdoor Living, which is a full service design and install, basically high-end landscaping, from everything to outdoor kitchens and pool houses and fireplaces, all that kind of stuff. And of course, throwing in some bushes here and there. How I got started was I was at Purdue University Calumet in Hammond, Indiana, studying architectural engineering. And I essentially dropped out of college to keep this rolling. I had started it up just to kind of pay my way through. It was a little long route, nothing too huge, but it started blowing up. It was blowing up right around the same time that I was really hating school. And I'm like, it's kind of a coincidence. Why don't we see where this thing goes? If I ever need to, I can come back and finish my degree. And I never did because I don't need to offer myself a degree at this point. That's basically it, man. It just kind of snowballed from there. It snowballed from clients having positive experiences and me continually hiring on other people that are better than me at what I do. And that's it. And now we're here.
That's awesome. That's my favorite story I think I've heard. I also started my degree. I have a saying that I use. I was like, I started consulting and my degree at the same time. And one of those things pays you.
Yeah, exactly.
I did go back to get my bachelor's degree almost just to like flick the chip off my shoulder, but
yeah,
I wasn't quite as confident in that as you. So I'm a little jealous.
I always thought that I might go back and do it. And I mean, there's still a small part of me that is like, well, I didn't finish something that I started.
Yeah.
But I just kind of have to remind myself, okay, where is my time going to be best invested in my life at this point? Is it going to be, am I going to really technically have a return other than my own emotion, my own inner pride? Am I going to have a return on this monetarily? No, I'm not. So I'm best off doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Somebody told me once, as I told them I was going back to get my degree, they were like, when I started that journey, I was like 26 when I said, okay, I'm going to go back. I'm going to finish up my degree.
Yeah.
I was talking to a mentor of mine, Fred McNulty. I don't actually know if you know him, but oh, okay. Yeah. And he kind of looked at me and he was like, I think it's really important that you do this. I think it's mostly important you do this for yourself because once you get into your young 30s, it won't matter anymore what the degree it is that you have. It'll matter what you've done.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, I mean, everything you're saying just kind of holds to that. Once you got to that point, you were like, it matters what I have done and what I continue to invest myself in. Like that thing is not going to produce what I can produce at this point with what I've done in my business.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, it's like you have to outline your life. Like, what am I going to be happiest doing? What's going to how am I going to have the most, like, the highest deliverable of joy in terms of my occupation or life or career or whatever? Some people say, well, I want to go be a missionary overseas. Great. Well, then you don't need to go to college for that. So it has to, what you do now just has to align. I mean, it's a very bland thing to say, but what you do now has to line up with your long-term vision and goal for your life. So.
Right. And if you don't have one, then maybe going to college can help you get there. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know a lot of people that went in not having a clue and came out knowing what they want to do. So totally cool too.
Awesome. Well, I'm encouraged by your story. So I like diving into that a little bit. Last time I saw you, COVID lockdowns have not quite started yet, I think. And business was You were just launching into the year, which, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, as far as I know, spring was springing, and that's a pretty busy time for you.
Yeah.
And how have things been going since then?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, we had our best year ever in 2020, which is saying something because obviously a lot of industries did not have their best year ever. A lot of industries closed their doors, which is super sad. And my heart breaks for that. I mean, I remember saying that with us. I know that there's a lot of people that are suffering right now, blah, blah, blah. And that obviously is still the case because we're not locked down per se, but there's still a lot of restrictions on businesses that are causing them it's restricting their cash flow, which is really unfortunate. They're having a hard time feeding their family. So we are in the home improvement business, and any company, any industry that is involved, whether it be the construction or it be the sales like Lowe's or Home Depot, anything that has to do with the home this year had a killer year. And that's, again, everybody's vacation budget went into the home because they want to go, hey, if the government tells me again that I need to stay home, I'm going to be like, sure, no problem, because I like where I live, right? So if I can't go on vacation, I can't go outside my house, guess I'm going to spend some money on my house and make it my palace, make it my castle. So I mean, yeah, we had a really good year, and it's shaping up to be a really good 2021 as well. As we're starting to book out our spring.
That was going to be my next question. Is like, so I mean, I'm obviously no stranger to the idea that I've been doing this podcast all throughout the summer and now into the fall and now the start of winter, and going, oh, home services. We basically just shifted the entirety of the travel budget of America into our houses.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, you were going to go abroad? Guess you have a patio now. Like,
yeah.
And
well,
so,
I thought, and it turns out it's better for them anyway, because I just actually got back from Florida, and I spent some money on a ticket, a hotel, rental car, resort fee, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get all that back. That was
right.
just and I'm happy with it personally because I needed that. But if I were to have, say, invested that into my home, obviously I have a return on that. So it's a win-win for homeowners right now to have their home value increased by a decision that they're making based on the government shutdowns and lockdowns.
Well, it's like very spirally, right? Like, or not spirally, but snowbally is what I mean, because I've heard you say this before, and I've seen this on your LinkedIn posts and stuff like that, which is that investing in your home isn't just fun for you; it increases the value of your home overall.
Yeah.
But more, and then on top of everything else, so like you've got a little bit of money. You were planning on traveling, now you're not.
Mm-hmm.
You invested into your house. Now your house is worth a little bit more. But also with the situation last year, this year, probably still, we're also looking at, and I just experienced this personally, the most insane housing market that I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Like, as down as 2008 was, and I was aware, but not, I wasn't involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm aware, and I'm going, holy crap, as down as that was, that's how up it is now.
Yeah.
And so not only are you stuck at home, improving your house, increasing the prices of your house, but somebody's probably interested in buying it soon.
Yep. Yep.
That's not like a future forward thought. That's like, that'll be relevant in 6 months if you decide.
It'll be relevant tomorrow. You want to list your house, it'll be sold tomorrow. I mean, that's the reality in a lot of areas right now. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it all feels very snowbally. So then, like, I talk a lot about the resiliency of the type of work that you do. People always want new floors and driveways and water heaters and whatever. And it sounds like you're just saying that's not only held true, it's gone up over this year.
You're saying in terms of like the increase of clientele, that type of thing?
Yeah.
Most definitely. Yeah.
How do you, I know you said that it's starting to feel like that for 2021 as well. Give us some indicators on like if other people are in either landscaping or some of these other home services similar to yours, because I'm sure that you work with other home service guys like sort of neck and neck.
Yeah,
You'll be doing their patio and like past the HVAC guy, right?
right.
Uh, and uh, how how are things shaping up for them too? Like, what's your outlook that you tell someone in that circle?
I mean, it depends on what industry you're in, and I'm not too incredibly familiar with. I mean, sure, new homes are going up left and right, and especially in our area. I think it's very regional
Mm,
because not only are there lockdowns, but the increase in home purchases or home improvement purchases is not necessarily true in every region of the country.
sure.
We are looking at a lot of people that are moving out of Chicago. They're moving out of California. They're moving out of cities where government policies have essentially forced them out. They can't work. If they do work, they're taxed to death. So they come and move to a business friendly and income friendly state. And so that's not, I can't say that that's true for those particular regions, but for us, we have, um, we can't build homes fast enough. The home
Yeah.
builders in my area, my region, can't build homes fast enough. People can't, the sales, uh, people put their homes on the market. So not even talking about new builds, but people put their home on the market. And like I just said, it's gone in 3, 4 days sometimes. It's insanity. So and I don't know what a new presidency is going to look like. I have no clue. I really don't follow all that stuff too intently to know this policy is going to affect this, and this is going to affect this. I do know that obviously, on the Democratic side, there is a lot more regulation, a lot more tax-heavy type things, so that might kindle, it might kind of throttle our sales a little bit. Um, but I mean, to be honest, most of our clientele are not going to feel it. Most of our clientele are really, on the higher end spectrum of income and holdings. Um, so based on what I have right now, we're expecting it to be a good year because the actions I'm taking right now are feeding into spring.
Yeah.
So I'd say that at least for now, and in our region with those kind of caveats, I would say that right now the 2021 year is shaping up to be pretty good, barring any kind of crazy other economic lockdown and people want to back out of contracts or something like that. Barring any of that kind of stuff, it should be hopefully as good. If it's 3/4 as good as this past year was, I'll be happy.
Well, I really appreciated the way that you like sort of hedged your answer,
Yeah,
but at the same time you were like, yeah, I think it's gonna be awesome.
yeah, right.
I tend to do that also. Somebody asked me what seems like a direct question, and then I'm like, well, there are a lot of factors.
Yeah,
Um, how over that, right? So okay, you had the standard home services 2020. It was very like very up for you, very down for some other people. Sucks. Thankfully, you were in this industry.
yeah.
Uh, for you and your team, last year you talked about how important some of like culture and hiring from within and getting recommendations and things like that. So did you have to increase the size of your team? And if you did have to increase or decrease, like how did you go about that?
We are currently in the act of increasing our team. Matter of fact.
Okay.
So yeah, we definitely had a higher demand last year, and we did increase our construction staff by a little bit. There were some decreases that we had by force. There were some severances that we had to make, and so opened up voids that we had to fill. So not only did we have to fill voids, but also new voids were created because of growth. So yeah, we all year we're kind of just working like crazy because we couldn't fill enough seats. And we could have filled the seat with somebody who had worked out temporarily, but we're really looking for people that can grow with us and be with us long term. So our standards are really high right now for hiring. certain positions. Um, we also invested in some equipment to try to take the place of certain spots. Obviously, that's just on the field construction side. For example, getting another bucket loading machine that's 3 or 4 men with a wheelbarrow, right? If I can save that much labor there, that's saving us on the amount of people that we have to have on the ground. So yeah.
That makes sense. So I have this quote. It's actually written on my whiteboard. Obviously, you can't see it, but
Yeah.
this is from the book Good to Great, and I don't know if you've read it, but this came from back when Circuit City was in its heyday. Obviously, that's gone now, but at one point, basically the chief of staff looked at the CEO and he was like, "We can't keep up with how many people we have to hire.
Yeah.
So what should we do? At what point do we get to compromise on some of our standards because we can't possibly hire as fast as we need to at this standard level?" And basically the CEO's answer was, don't ever compromise. Find some other way to get through until you have the right people. So just give me your gut reaction to that. Does that feel like
My gut reaction to that is Circuit City is no longer in business. So that's telling me one thing, but that's not a bad quote. You can't compromise on your integrity. You can't compromise on your quality. You have to have the same output across the board. And if you have to compromise on one of those things, it's not worth the growth because that growth will end up hurting you. You're going to do something that's going to piss somebody off, and that, man, fire spreads, right? Negative experiences spread faster. One negative experience will spread faster than 10 positive experiences. So I want to fuel the right fire, right? I want to fuel the fire of positive experiences. I'm going to definitely lower the bar on what people feel as the output of Creekside if we try to blast growth and don't grow smart, right? So, I think one thing is you have to throttle growth a little bit. And if you want to grow, that's great. Do you have the right people in place, and not just a body in a seat? No. You got to identify clearly, what do I need, and who is the right person, the exact right person to the T, and keep your standards high. And you don't grow where you think you're going to grow without that person in the seat, because otherwise people are going to have negative experiences and spread that to somebody else down the line who would have otherwise said, maybe I'll give Creekside a chance. I don't want to do that. So for us, for example, we're kind of in that position right now, right? Our growth is outpacing our staffing abilities just a little, and that's right. It's comfortable. I like that, right? Because now we have the capacity for organic growth that way. But I have to throttle the incoming just a little bit to make sure that, number one, the right people are coming in our door, right? In terms of clients. So one thing that I have done in the last year is I've charged for consultations. Some people will go, hold on a second. Are you telling me that to come out to my house, you're going to make me pay you? I'm like, yeah, that's yes. My time, my expertise is worth something, frankly, and that is a way to weed out people who otherwise might just be window shopping. I don't want people who are window shopping. I don't want people who just want a landscape job. I want people who want a Creekside job. We've done that. We've also increased the what we charge for our designs by just a little bit, so that we're not overburdening my design staff for no apparent reason. I want people who are very committed to the design, committed to working with us in our window of people that are on our list.
I've talked a lot with guys this year, and sort of historically this has happened. It seems like when you, and this might be the natural order of things, I don't know, but when you move up and hold to a higher standard like you are right now, inevitably it means that you're turning away a decent amount of customers and therefore revenue that someone is going to get at some point.
Yeah.
As a digital marketing agency, I talk all the time about how there's, especially in the home services, there's no such thing as underserved clients. Like, someone's gonna get that job, whether it's neighbor Jim or whether it's like a real, landscaping company or for HVAC guys or plumbers or whatever. But like, if your water heater's broken, someone is going to get the job. There's no such thing as I need my water heater fixed and, oh, I'm just waiting for someone to start a new business so that I can get my water heater fixed. Like, that doesn't exist. So it's technically always about winning market share from someone else in the home service. Now, I'm not saying there's any lack of market share. Like, we can't keep up, right? But you're technically always taking a job from somebody somewhere. And your expertise and the quality of what you do is how you get the jobs that you get. How do you refer, or do you just say no? Like, when someone says, you know what, never mind, or they pay you, you come out, you do the consultation, and then you give a general estimate, and then they're like, whew, that's that's a more than I was thinking.
Yeah.
Can you refer me to someone else? Do you handle referrals? Do you refer quote down?
Well, let me answer with a question. Do you think people that walk into Fogo de Chao in Chicago and see their menu, do you think their waiters say, well, McDonald's is $5? No.
No.
And obviously those are kind of two extremes. But I mean, no, I mean, it's not my responsibility for them to, I mean, to a certain extent, I do care about my client and I do want them to have a positive experience, but I am who I am because I have the conviction that I'm going to be the best contractor for them. And I think that for them to choose somebody else, it's a mistake. And if I don't approach them with that confidence, I'm not going to gain the trust of my clients. They're not going to see, excitement in my voice and in my face. I'm going to go in there thinking, I mean, the guy down the street can probably do it for $5,000 less, but we're kind of charging here. No, I'm charging this because I have the right people for the job. I've got the right equipment for the job. My designer has the best creativity out of that guy's down the street, and it would be a mistake for this client to go with somebody else. And I frankly, I tell people that. I mean, there is definitely such a thing as people who call us to come back and repair a job that I bid, and I hate the word bid because it places an auction mentality on something that is not an item but a custom crafted service. But I digress. We do repair jobs that we quoted, and somebody went with somebody cheaper, and it sucked. And I don't mean just sucked cosmetically; it sucked structurally. We had to tear major pieces out, and they ended up spent double when they could have just spent what they're going to spend with us. So long story short, no, I do not refer down. If it's a service we don't provide, people will call us for residential snow plowing for their driveways. Okay, if I got a guy, I'll send them their way. But outside of that, no, because I do believe they'd be making a mistake.
So I personally, I love that answer. That's my favorite answer.
Yeah.
And so then my question would be, because I have to answer the exact same thing, right? I'm running More Leads Online. I'm running this digital marketing agency. What do? We specialize in getting more leads online for home services companies. And if somebody comes to me and goes, "Are you going to be better than?" Let's pick a player in the industry, right? Are you going to be better than Dex Media? And I'm going to go
throwing dartboard at that point. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but I can't just say yes, and I can't guess.
Yeah.
Either I know that I'm better, or I don't.
Right.
And so my question back to you a little deeper on this would be, because maybe I'm not. Maybe, like maybe I don't know, or maybe I've looked at their stuff and gone, yeah, okay, it's pretty trash, but like I don't actually have the expertise.
Yeah.
And so would you recommend to people who aren't quite at the level that you're at right now to say, hey man, or woman, if you're right, pick the things that you are confident in
Mm-hmm.
and get confident in a few things and bid those things like you're a pro, even if it's not at the level that Creekside is. Like if it's just mowing a lawn,
Yeah.
like be the best fucking lawnmower
Yeah.
and bid it that way. So you're
Right.
not going to get somebody better than me. Walk in with that level of confidence, even if that's the level you're at right now. Would you recommend that?
For people who are kind of starting out, you're saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would consider you sort of a leader, at least in our local industry at the
Yeah.
very least. But I think in general, like um, the way that you conduct your team, the way that you're working with clients, sort of the level of clientele that you're working at, a
Yeah.
lot of us would look up to you. And so I'm asking you, like, as we're working towards your,
Should we act the part?
yeah, pretty much.
Act the part, even, fake it till you make it type of thing. So long as it doesn't cross a immoral or, some type of wrong category. Like if you are not going to do this right, if you aren't 100% sure that you can do this, then no, like then you are doing your client a disservice, because you might be the one that is screwing somebody that they're going to have a horror story about later. Like if you don't have certifications in, I don't know, certain retaining wall types, and you don't, you can't say with confidence, ma'am, this retaining wall that I'm building that's holding up your driveway is not going to collapse and your SUV isn't going to roll and kill your kid. If you can't confidently say that, then you should pass it on to somebody else. But other things that are no-brainers, yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, because I'm not a fan of faking anything, but
Well, and I guess I'm trying, I'm actually asking you the opposite of that. It seemed like what you were saying is don't fake it. Be honest. And the best way to be honest is not fake it till you make it. Don't do that. Instead, find the three things that you know you're incredible at, or
mhm,
get incredible at those three things, even if they're quote lower level or whatever.
sure,
And bid those things because you're awesome at them rather than faking it. Don't do that. Be honest and get
sure,
awesome.
sure. Yeah, and
Okay.
in that, I'm an advocate for that. And while you're doing that, go to seminars, get your team,
Right.
do these things to where, you can say, next year, I'm going to start bidding X. I'm going to start advertising for this, that we do this.
Yes.
Find an aunt or an uncle that you can do a test on, and, make some mistakes and fail yourself forward. So when you go to do it on a customer site, you're not going to screw it up. So,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We did this year, just over the last 3 or 4 months, something that we worked really hard on, but we just basically didn't tell anyone. We were like, hey, this is what we specialize in. Um, but one of the hardest things about getting more leads online for home service companies, it frankly, aside from all of the shady whatever, right? Sort of like the fact that everybody's been through the Dex Media ring or the Yellow Pages
right.
ring or the
Yep.
Haibu ring or like, well, I've been screwed 4 times. Why would I go with you guys?
100%. Yeah.
So one of the things we worked on that we were like, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to manually quality check every single lead we get.
Yeah.
We're going to answer these 3 questions. What did you get? Where did it come from? And what did it cost?
Mm-hmm.
And until we were like absolutely confident that we could do that with a pretty high degree of accuracy, to the point where like my Mason and I are sitting on like listening to calls, like hundreds and hundreds of
Yeah.
we just didn't say we could do it, but now we know we can.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of a month, we do. And we have listened to all the calls. We have manually tagged them. And so now we're saying, oh, you want to know those 3 questions from your marketing agency? we can answer those 3 questions.
Yeah.
But we didn't say that until like 4 months after. Like,
Yeah.
so I love your answer. I'm really glad that you would encourage people that way. Lots and lots of people would say, and I've worked with guys like this who are like, okay, we're doing this now. Marketing and sales go tell people we do that now.
Yeah.
And the ops team is like, how do we do that though?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be fully prepared for that phone call that's going to call you and be like, all right, so what would you do in this scenario? How would you charge for this? Don't know. That's an embarrassing place to be.
Right. So anyway, I'm switching gears just a little bit, but
Mhm.
you work mostly outside. Not all trades are quite as lucky, right? Or unlucky, depending on the time of year.
Mhm.
Are you providing PPE or anything like that for your teams now?
It's a great question. We have things provided should they want it. I mean, I'm a big advocate for um, you go to certain weddings now, and when you walk in, there's a band that says like green means you're comfortable with hugs, yellow means high five, red means stay away. And you put that on, and everybody just kind of is now can commingle, knowing what everybody wants to how they want to approach it. So we're kind of in the same boat. Like if you feel like you need this, here it is. Um, However, for the most part, like you said, we are working outside. We are out in the open air, open element. None of my guys are ever really too terribly close to each other. I mean, you want to talk about 6 feet, and that's everybody throws that number around these days. That is nobody's ever close to them. They're always in separate work zones. Nobody's ever in direct contact with the client. Usually that's just me or my project manager on site. Or the client can do the same thing. They can come out at their own discretion. I've had clients that I went for a consultation and they wanted to stay in their home and me walk around their property with them on the phone. Okay. I mean, if that's what makes you feel safe, we can accommodate that. It's not a problem. So, I mean, same thing with on site, on construction sites. They don't have to go outside. A lot of them prefer to. I'd say, I mean, 99 out of 100 of them are going outside and they're not really too terribly worried about any of this stuff. So, yeah, I'd say, I mean, if they need it, if they want it, we're there to provide it. However, the need is not really there. It's kind of like throwing somebody a life preserver when they're not going to be in the water. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're outside. The air is refreshed 5,000 times every second. So.
Right. So on some level, you've been able to mostly just sort of de facto deal with it because you're like, well, we're always meeting the guidelines. We always were.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Correct.
that makes sense. I know that we work with several plumbers, and basically day one, it was like they were already doing things like disposable pajamas or whatever, and like the booties and stuff like that. And so then we just sometimes we were already wearing face masks. Like I remember even just grinding floors. I'm working a side by side. And for years, every time we were on a job, especially if we were on a job in a municipal building, because we did like a lot of courthouses and hospitals and stuff. I mean, didn't matter. You wore your hard hat. You had your face mask. So some of this stuff was there already, but we're seeing a lot of this now. It's basically required. But I was wondering how it had affected you. And the answer sounds like mostly not.
Yeah, mostly not. If anything, it's in our office and making sure that everybody that's in close quarters is has the accommodations that they need or want, and likewise with our clients. I'm right now at my desk and I'm not wearing a mask. I'm by myself.
Right.
But there will be clients that walk in and they walk in with a mask on, and I'll quick reach in here and throw this bad boy on. It's just as simple as that.
Basically, what you're telling me is accommodate your customers and accommodate your people.
That's it. I mean, everybody's feeling different about it. And so, I mean, my church at Crown Point felt, everybody feels so differently about it that they actually made 2 services, one for people that are really intent about everything being, kid gloves and masks no matter what. and people who want it a little bit more lax. I mean, it's that polarizing right now that a church separated the services for that. So
Right.
likewise, I mean, we kind of have to adapt to do the same thing too.
Right. It makes sense. I'm going to shift again. Some of these are all like basically business policy. You know, how are you leading your business right now? We're moving towards another round of PPP funding.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to ask about the overarching opinion on PPP as a good or bad thing, but just generally, my question is, because we can believe it's a terrible thing and still apply for it. As business owners, we know how to utilize resources and know that there is a need to sometimes, even if whether we think it's a good idea or not. So my question to you is, frankly, will you try to apply for the second round?
You know, I'm a little undecided on it. It's going to be something that I talk with my financial people about and try to see, you know, do we qualify for this? Do we even need this? Because again, I want to make sure that everything that we do falls on moral high ground, right? If I absolutely do not need it, I don't have a deficiency based on, you know, COVID strongholds and my inflow of clients isn't being throttled. I don't know if I will. That's kind of the long and the short of it.
It feels, I think it's a great answer. It feels, everyone I talk to says it feels like a catch-22, where they're like, I feel terrible for even talking about it. On the flip side, I'm a business owner, and if this thing gets made available to me, I'm not retarded. I'm going to go use my resources, any that are available. So,
yeah,
like,
right. I mean, I'd say, you know, 5 out of 10 people that got the stimulus check at the very onset may or may not have needed it. And obviously that has different purposes. That's for, you know, stimulating the economy. It's not necessarily, I mean, the second round here, I can go on and on. I mean, they're calling it they're calling it a stimulus check, but they're also at the same time saying, well, it's for people that are desperately in need. Which is it? Is it to stimulate the economy or help the people that are in need? I mean, I go off on a tangent. So anyway, yeah. So I mean, again, at the end of the day, I mean, we go to the extent of we don't, you know, do cash jobs, you know, to where we take home cash and don't report it. Like there's a lot of contractors that do that. And that's why people always say, ooh, what's the discount if I give you cash?
Yes.
Greenbacks. I'm like, nothing.
Yeah.
It's going to go to the same place. Are you, sorry, Mr. Client, are you assuming that I'm going to commit tax fraud? No. So no, I want to make sure that everything we do is done with integrity and honesty, whether or not it's honesty that is seen or behind the scenes, right? Because if and the same thing for, you know, my office team that is making financial decisions daily. I need to make sure that I can, you know, say that we're standing on moral high ground, because what kind of example am I setting for everybody else in the office or out in the field? Hey guys, I don't want you to milk hours on the clock, which they don't. My teams are very, very good. But how can I tell them to be honest if I'm not being honest? So I don't know. I'm not saying that we're not going to apply for it, because the thing is, our circumstances, and we've witnessed this so frequently in the last, you know, number of months. Circumstances change on a dime. We could be flourishing one year, and then the next year desolate and desperate. You know, 2019, you know, we were okay. We had an okay year, and then we went, you know, entering into 2020, and lockdown started happening. I had a lot of clients that were like, hey, Mike, that down payment I was about to bring in tomorrow and sign that contract, COVID. I'm like, I get it. And that happened a lot. And so our circumstances and our outlook and our perspectives were like, shit, what are we going to do? And then all of a sudden it took off. So it's so hit or miss. So I'm not going to say we're going to close off the option to it, because if it's there and it's readily available, then, you know, then why not, if we actually need it?
No, I think that's a great answer. Let me ask you about technology. First of all, you have an awesome website. Second, you post up on LinkedIn all the time. You and I were chatting about this before the podcast that I'm always like, oh yeah, here's another post from Mike. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Happy to.
besides, Instagram, LinkedIn, your website are what other tools would you say? And you talked about like getting a backhoe earlier. What other tools, but technology specifically, are critical for your business? So I guess I'm focused a little bit in house, like
Mhm.
in office, but at the same time, like not necessarily, like just generally technology. What are the tools that are critical for you?
Well, some of it I'm not going to share because my competitors are going to listen to
Yeah.
this and get the leading edge on me. But the first thing that comes to mind, and it's pretty self-explanatory, is a cloud-based file system to eliminate paper as much as humanly possible. Because there's too often that there's one thing I need and I can't find it in the file cabinet, and this person's office is locked. Even if it wasn't locked, I wouldn't be able to find it. If it's a well-organized cloud-based file system, I can be anywhere on any device and locate the piece of information that I need. And I know that it's not going to get lost, and I'm saving myself office space. I'm not cluttering up cubic feet that I don't need to. So I'd say that the most critical thing for us has been trying to every step of the way, and we still have some file cabinets. I'm ashamed to say, but trying to eliminate paper as much as humanly possible. That is like the thing that's like staring that I'm like glaring at me with that question.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did some consulting. I still am doing consulting for another company called Pure Driven, which is also a marketing agency, but different than MLO because they are very specifically focused in the franchise space. And uh, so we actually, just so you know, so I actually did encourage them to take PPP funding
Yeah.
for that company because in 48 hours, they lost 90% of their committed revenue.
Yep.
It was like, things are going fine. Things are going fine. Company hasn't been doing that well. Maybe we can talk about, like what are the things that we could adjust. And then in literally 2 days, 2 business days, it was like the company was just gone.
Hmm.
And so I was like, that's like literally the week that I walked in. It was like I walked in and then they were like, hey, so let's get you signed up for like your email account. By the way, company decimated. I was like, oh, neat. Like,
yeah.
But one of the things that we had to tackle was like that file storage system. And I was asking for things in rapid, like I need this piece of information, this piece of information right now about getting this stuff or that. And I'm remote.
Mm-hmm.
I literally just had a guy constantly via text at first, or call him or text him, and he was just running to a filing cabinet and like looking for things. Within 1 week, it was like, you just put 4 people on it. I don't care what we do. The most important thing we can do is get all of our paper is gone now.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you've done that's a little bit like that this year where you went, we're going to make this decision. And historically, maybe you would have gotten some pushback. And then you just said, COVID.
Huh. That's a really good question. I got to dig deep for that one. What is something that we did that was in light of COVID and it was otherwise something that we may not have done? Man, I really got nothing because so much of what we have always done is what we're doing now. I mean, the file thing is not something, yes, we had to have some people work remote, right? Well, there's some people that have always been kind of semi-remote. Them being remote forces us to have a cloud-based system. Well, we've kind of always done a cloud-based system. You know what I mean? So I feel like for the most part, we entered COVID semi-comfortable in terms of how we do things and how we run things, because we are already doing the things that would have been required had we not been doing them. I'm at every step of the way, I'm trying to think of how do we make this thing more efficient? How do we make it more bomb proof? I mean, what if the building burns down tomorrow? What happens to all of our contracts and documents? Was it stored? in a fire safe file cabinet. Hopefully, no, I would rather it be already in the cloud and it's safe. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we're already taking those steps, and at every step, that is my biggest um, my biggest energy driver is like, how do we make this thing more efficient? Efficiency is like, I'll tell you what, I brush my teeth while I shower. I'm trying to be as efficient. I eat breakfast standing up so I can take a bite and go do my hair. I mean,
Right.
it's a little excessive, but like that's just what I enjoy. I don't want to waste a single minute. So I'm already doing those things ahead of time that I would have done had I not been doing them. Say that 6 times fast.
Well, thanks for spending an hour with me on this podcast. You've been answering email this entire time.
Just kidding.
So I know one of the things that we did was we got a lot of paper checks from clients.
Yeah.
And we basically said, hey, ACH only from now on. And we had some clients be like, what? But I've always paid with a check. And we went, COVID. And like, that was the end of the conversation. We were like, we'll, get on the phone with you and walk you through it if you need to. We made training videos, but we were like, don't send us a check. Don't send us a paper check. Click the button, run the payment. Like, that's it.
That's super funny that you say that, because that's something that I have been really trying to push for. I'm coming up. I wouldn't say I'm coming up against resistance with my team, because they agree that it's a necessary thing, but it's just the timing and all that kind of thing. So that is one thing that I have really tried to push, but I'm kind of letting them time it out as best as they think that needs to be timed. We do have a lot of elderly people that are maintenance clients and fertilizer clients, and we run the risk of losing them if we say, hey, ACH only. But I do have on the other extreme clients that are like, what's a check? I couldn't even find a checkbook if I looked super hard in my house. So ACH is definitely the way of the future. Or I mean, obviously taking credit card payments, but having everything be online is definitely crucial. That's something that we're trying to push toward as well.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that I caught you with that one.
Yeah.
We did a few of those. But I mean, I basically got to yank a little company. That company that lost almost all of its revenue, it is doing much better now. It's still in business.
Okay.
That was partially due to the PPP funding,
Yeah.
frankly. So I mean, like, no matter what other opinions I might have on it, it basically saved several jobs there. So
Yeah.
I am appreciative. So on your website, speaking of technology, I don't want to give anything to competitors, but one of the things that I talk about for business strategy is that I'm like, and I stole this from a guy named Scott Galloway, but basically his quote on strategy is, business strategy at the top level is your answer to the question, what can we do that is super fucking hard? And then, like, that's top level business strategy.
Mm-hmm.
You have this 3D model for landscaping and turf products on your website.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it. Like, how did you approach incorporating that? Like, I just want to know about it.
Okay. That's the 3D technology is something that has been really nowadays is very commonplace amongst most landscape contractors. In fact, if you're not using it to some shape or form, you're losing clientele, because you are drowned out by the other 95% of contractors that are using that and helping clients visualize, instead of just words on paper, what is this going to look like. So yeah, I mean, it's something that we've been using for so many years, and it was something that we were forced into, because we had to kind of join in with a lot of other people that were doing it. I'd say we were one of the first to start using that, but we saw other people starting to use it. Like, we really need to incorporate this as well. Yeah, I mean, what we are doing with it is, gosh, on such a grander scale than anybody else in our area. And I say that with complete confidence, because too frequently we get people sending us designs that somebody else has done. And we're like, what do you think about this? What would you do differently about this? And I'm like, everything. It all sucks. I'm like, I can't begin to tell you the amount of things that are cosmetically and functionally wrong with this design. You should really entertain the thought of scrapping your company and hiring us to do this from scratch. We can't even use this design.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, what we're doing is on a much grander scale. I mean, I know for a fact that we're spending at least 4 times the amount of time per project on average than anybody else in that area, and that's why we have to charge. I mean, I cannot do that stuff for free. So that is that's very much so a service. It's not so much just it's part of the bid. People will say, well, you want to quote me for something. If you want the business, you'll do it. I'm like, no, if you want the service of a 3D design, you're going to have to pay for it because this is a service. This isn't even something that I like to credit back to people in the course of, hey, if you do the project, we'll credit it back to you. Well, why? It was literally a service that a high paid person and a high paid computer system and an expensive software did and constructed for you. Why is that something that needs to be refunded? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a whole thing, and it's something that's extremely critical. It's like the backbone of our business, honestly.
Well, and it sounds like what you just said to me is that part of the reason that it's a service is because, as opposed to other companies who are doing theirs a little old, more, let's call it old school, or maybe like not as thoroughly as you are, you can't send a crew out to do the job that comes from that. Whereas most other companies could probably take yours and go do the job because it's so thorough. So you're not doing like, this is part of our estimate. You're like, this is a plan. That's a product. Go get somebody to do it. But the best person you're going to find to do it is me.
I mean, you're not going to hear those words come out of my mouth. Go find somebody to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a presentation that we have with the costs. I mean, in that same meeting, we would not be in the design service if we were not also in the construction service.
Sure,
Right?
sure.
So, yeah, it is absolutely 100% just as much of a service as installing it, because we are helping you figure out. I paid somebody. I just moved to Chicago recently, and I got an apartment. And when I moved in, it was just a big box. Yes, I had I had a couch, and I had some other stuff, but I paid a service. It was called Havenly. It's an online thing where you submit all of your pictures of your apartment and the dimensions and all that kind of stuff, and they tell you what they think would look best. That's a service. I need somebody to help me visualize what I want before I can figure out how to implement what I want. Instead of doing it and screwing it up and needing to redo it later. So it's a service through and through.
As part of Havenly's process, did they deliver you the thing and then also showcase their price for buying all of it for you and getting it shipped?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah, I'm not interested in that. That's they are crucially, they are strictly design service, and if you happen to buy it through them, then they're happy too.
Oh, okay.
We're like the other way around. I mean,
yes.
My business model is not. There are contractors out there that are just design only, and there's landscape architect firms out there. I mean, I have a whole warehouse full of trucks and equipment that, I mean, we are geared for the construction part of it. And it's because I built the company to do that because I wanted to do that. I'm not interested in just show up to work every day in a suit and tie. I want to show up to work in nice pair of boots and jeans and a polo because I want to go out to sites and I want to walk sites and talk to my crewmen. That's why we do what we did and the trajectory that we're on.
That's awesome. I have a couple of marketing specific questions for you, and then my last section is quick fire questions.
Yeah.
So how would you say that you're already growing? You're in the you happen to be one of the companies that's seen a boom. We expect this to continue into 2021. What are some of the tactics that you'll be focusing on? Because you've told me that your strategy in 2021 is to grow, but try to do so mostly organically, right? Probably a continuation of what you were doing previously, but what are some of the tactics that you'll be focusing on to try to continue that as you go through 2021? in
terms of marketing?
Yeah, I guess I should, just for anyone listening, the way I would phrase strategy and tactics, it's strategy would be like, hey, we want to accomplish these primary goals. You know, we want to grow revenue by 20% if it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make these 2 new partnerships, and we, you know, like, and then tactically, you might say, we're going to do cold LinkedIn outreach and, you know, do a 7-point follow-up process, or we're going to run Facebook display ads. You know, those are tactics. Facebook is not a strategy.
Right.
And Facebook is not a tactic either. Like, doing a specific thing, right, with the tool, that's a tactic. So my question to you is, what are some of the, and don't give me all of them, you know, but what's a tactic or 2 that you would go, this is what we think that we're going to try out this year?
One thing that I have, we really need to grow our fertilizer clientele. We have my COO happens to be extremely knowledgeable with fertilizer products, and we have created our own program. So we do all that in-house. We mix our own products in-house. So because we have that expertise and that knowledge base and wisdom under our own roof, we need to take better and fuller advantage of it. And so we need to therefore grow our clientele. One thing that I have, I haven't done door hangers since 10, 12 years ago. But I mean, I think we are going to do that a little bit and target the areas that there is already a client. So we could say, hey, your neighbor down the street has a Creekside flag, and go take a look at it and look at their yard. So I think that may have a better effect than when I was just kind of blanketing a whole subdivision with door hangers like you see every spring, like 10 of them on everybody's door. I show up to consultations and there's like 6 of them on a door hanger. I'm like,
yep,
man, I'd be like, can we remove those for you? So I think that targeting our existing client base and saying, hey, you have a flag in your neighbor's yard, you should go take a look at it. If you like what you see, give us a holler. That I think should prove to have some positive results. So that's one thing that we're going to be doing to expand our client base with fertilizer.
Okay, one of your strategies for the company, expand fertilizer client base. One of the tactics that you'll be focusing on is papering around areas where you already have clients.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I know I just got them talking about eliminating paper, and here we are. We're going to go shoot a bunch of paper.
But, well, good luck finding a direct mail agency that's not out of business. Oh, wait. I shouldn't say that.
Don't even get me started. I hate it.
So, what could we, here's my last question before I go to, here's my last general question before I go to quick fire. What could we do? You and I chatted about this a little bit, and I've brought it up once or twice throughout this conversation, but More Leads Online is a company I own. It's me and some other guys, right? We're a small agency. We have experience in the home services and in the trades. I personally worked in construction for like 5 years. I was in the BC Local 4 in Indiana. You know, like, I grew up in small business. I know having a marketing agency or having a marketing arm of your company is critical. You can't not, right? And so you're going to use paper flyers. That means you're not going to have your dudes go hang them themselves. Like, I mean, I don't think. Maybe it's just when you're out at that client's house, like, paper 100 of these guys.
Maybe, we'll see.
Maybe. So my question is, having been through the ringer in the industry, and I caught the first hybrid rep when I was like 14 years old, walked into my parents' furniture and appliance store, and they were trying to sell my dad, and my dad was like, talk to the kid, like, we've all been through the ringer on that. I've got this agency. How do I win the trust of business leaders like you, or that in your circle? What is your network looking for now from an agency that you would actually trust?
I think it's no different than any other industry that's trying to win the trust of a potential client base. I think it's putting out content that is educational and not so self-promoting. You have to have a little bit of self-promotion in it, but I think that you put out content that shows I know what I'm talking about, and you create it with the perspective and frame of thought that I am not looking to gain something out of this piece of content except to just educate my following. I think that that is extremely winsome. It may not feel like it right then and there because you're like, well, where's my call to action? We're all concerned about the call to action. Yeah, I mean, there's a place for that, but you have to put out things that people will be attracted to you because they saw something that showed them he knows what he's talking about. And no, everybody is going, call me. We'll do it for half. We'll do it for less. Call the experts. Well, show me that you're the expert. I mean, show. I want to go. I mean, honestly, I do this all the time. If I want a professional, I don't know if it's an electrician or if it's a home builder or whatever. I want to go find their social media. I want to go see how do they know. Do they know specifically what they're talking about? Do they know how to install this stuff? So I think that that is something that is massive. Is to on the forefront, just to be the person that somebody is looking for, so that when they go looking for it, they see your stuff, and it's not all big words on a a feed. It's all I don't know. It's some sort of educational content.
Oh, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm shirking my duty by having you do all my educating for me and I'm making Mike available to the world of home service leaders.
There you go.
No, that's awesome. That's fantastic advice. I will take that and embody it, continue to try to push that forward. I have this other section. I call it quick fire questions.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you questions. Your answers, just like straight off the top of your head. We're going to go through really quick, and then we'll close out. So I'll go here. I should have some music or something for this. Favorite Creekside project?
I'd say the favorite project that we did was in 2019. It was in Crown Point. I'm not going to call out the customer's name, but it had everything, a little bit of everything. It had, multiple pergolas. It had several different paver types. It had a putting green. It had artificial turf, had lighting, had plants. And that one, I mean, we went through several design several hours with the client to get it to be exactly what they want it to be. But and a water feature. I mean, literally a walkway. You walk into the backyard through the fence, water feature on your left, plants and lighting on your right, dining section, there's a swing that was hanging from the pergola. I mean, that place was dreamy. That's my favorite project.
Awesome. What features would you put in your own dream backyard?
Fire is such a attractive thing to sit around, and it's a conversation starter. So the biggest thing I like to grill, but an outdoor kitchen is not like my top thing. I think that a really well crafted gas fire feature, linear, a little bit longer. It's not square, it's not round, it's kind of longer. It's like what you'd see on a Chicago rooftop bar. That would be a really key thing for my dream home. Yeah.
That's awesome. Would you take a pool or a hot tub?
Pool. Heck yeah, absolutely pool.
How about a patio or a deck?
Oh, yeah, you D word. Dude, a patio. Patio is going to have much higher return on your investment. It has so much more aesthetic value than a deck. You've got so much more customizable options. It's going to be more structurally sound than a deck. Yeah, patio over deck, 10 out of 10 times.
I love how many times you have very obviously had an opinion on this question.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Outdoor kitchen or outdoor entertainment center?
What do you mean by outdoor entertainment center? Because an outdoor kitchen could be entertaining.
Right. I guess one of the things that you said was like, more of like a fire feature, not necessarily just for grilling, but like to sit around. So more like that. And then you mentioned the other in the other backyard, not so much an outdoor kitchen, but they have like pergolas and light features and like garden stuff. And so maybe like that, like, would you rather have a big patio set up for an outdoor kitchen or all the other features you could have?
Yeah, I would probably first go for, I mean, I want it all, don't get me wrong. But if I was placed into a position where I had to choose between the two, I would certainly go for something that is much more multi functional than a kitchen. And that's just me, because there's some people that will still blow $30,000-$40,000 on their kitchen alone because they want they want the green egg cooker and the hibachi grill. They want all that stuff in there. I'm more on the other end where I'm like, I'm going to DoorDash and sit around a fire. So I think that's kind of where I'm at.
What is your favorite and least favorite trend in landscape design right now?
I would say my most favorite trend in landscape design right now is where we are using more linear pavers in basket weave or herringbone patterns. I really like that a lot, and in larger slabs. Not so much like these, the old style, 4x8 pavers, super super small. But I'm trying to think if I even have a picture laying around somewhere. No, I don't think I do. But it's a much simpler layout, and it looks so clean. Using larger slabs of paver in one color and doing it in a basket woven or that's how I pattern. I'd say my least favorite, least favorite. I mean, it's still a trend. It's still around, and you wouldn't understand it unless you knew pavers. But I mean, there's still certain pavers that are offered by a company called Unilock that people still go for, and it's a paver called Brussels, and it's a very old. It's been around since like the inception of paver companies. It doesn't have any color guards in it, but it's just like this. It's an old paver that people still go for because it's a little bit on the cheaper end. And I wish it would just be completely eradicated. But that's not something the general public would even know what I'm talking about unless they looked up Unilock Brussels.
One of our clients is a landscaping supply in Chicago. And if I had $1 for every time they gave shit about a customer who put an order in for that.
Yeah.
What is so how often do you check Creekside's Google reviews?
Not too often, because I get an email every time we get a review. But I mean, maybe once a year I'll take a peek at it. It's nothing that I'm overly concerned about.
Do you text customers, yes or no?
Yes, it feels like they're the type of client that would appreciate that.
Okay, so you allow texting either way?
Yes. Yeah.
And then do you, speaking of reviews, do you ask every client for an honest review?
No, I mean, I feel like that kind of gets burdensome. If my client had a good experience, they'll naturally go to my website. And there'll be, every once in a while where I'm like, hey, I think this person had a good experience. I might ask them, but it's not like a systematic,
yeah,
anything like that. You know what I mean?
So here's my last quick fire question. Who would you love to hear answer some of these questions? Basically, who should we interview next?
Who should you interview next? I have to think about that one, because you're going to get a lot of the same answers from some of my friends. So I'm trying to think of who would give you some really good answers.
Yeah, we already had you on, so you can't say yourself.
No, I know. I'd say one of our suppliers, actually. I would say either Niemeyer and Crown Point, or Rich Tristakes from Elsa.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I've heard of Niemeyer a couple of times before. Those are both fantastic recommendations. Yeah, I wasn't necessarily saying like who's the biggest hot shot, whatever. I was just like, hey, somebody else who does fantastic work that you know.
Yeah. Something that would give you some radically different answers than I would, because it's kind of a completely different industry. It's going from installer to supplier. So
right. I'm hoping to have our landscaping supplier client on the podcast in the next month or two.
Nice.
And
who is that, by the way?
Well, Whatever. I think we have it on our profile. It's Mononi and McConey in Chicago.
Okay, I haven't heard of them.
They're in like Arlington Heights in the northern section.
Okay.
They've been around for like 100 years.
Wow. Okay.
We love
I'll
those
check it out.
guys.
Yeah.
But their yard is huge.
Yeah.
I love spending time with them.
Awesome.
It's a bunch of fun. Okay, I'm done. I put you through the ringer. We might have to split this episode into two. The amount of like gold nuggets you dropped during this conversation. Normally, we try to tease out a couple of those pieces, like you said, those sort of educational, useful things to sort of post on LinkedIn or Instagram.
Yeah.
Normally we do like 5, 6, 7. With you, we're going to have to do like 15, 16, 17.
Nice. Good. Glad to provide some insight again.
Absolutely awesome. And so cool to get the different perspective between like early in the year and then early this year. Just like what a freaking insane, like before and after, right? Over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
If people want to follow Creekside or they want to find you, correct me if I'm wrong, Creekside on Facebook and Instagram at Creekside NWI.
Mm-hmm.
And you on LinkedIn, just Mike Arnold on LinkedIn. But you can also follow Creekside on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, you can. I mean, my personal Instagram is just Mike Arnold, and then the Facebook and the Instagram is going to be at Creekside NWI, like Northwest Indiana. And those are the prominent places that you're going to find our content.
Awesome. And I can confirm to anyone who might be curious, it is some of the most badass looking outdoor living space content. I love seeing it pop up on my feed. I'm kind of a nerd for that stuff anyway, but it's fantastic photos, the coolest outdoor scapes. Just enjoy nerding out on it. So it's a bunch of fun to have that scroll through your feed. Mike, thank you so much again for being on the show. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, dude. Love to do it. It's a lot of fun with you guys.
Awesome, man. We'll see you again in the next, I don't know, 6 or 7 months.
Something like that. Yeah.
That's right.
Get an update on the industry, state of the economy, that thing.
Exactly. Awesome. Boom. Okay, I'm done.